Mannin Line.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster my good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. This year, big year for the Isle of Man. It's election year. Thursday, 24th of September is when it all happens, and today the final budget of this Canon administration was announced by the Treasury Minister, Chris Thomas, NHK. If you've been following it, I just wonder what your thoughts are. And our budget's got a strapline. Everything's got a strapline these days, hasn't it? It is stability, security and confidence, Treasury Minister said. Stability, security and confidence. Chris Thomas believes the financial plan sets out a pathway towards reducing the Isle of Man's reliance on general reserves. Spending for 26-27 is budgeted at £1.47 billion, representing a spend of £18,280 for every person on the Isle of Man. Look after it. 1.47 billion. Here's Chris Thomas, who wants to encourage growth.
We all need a solid boost of confidence. Confidence to secure jobs, confidence to increase private investment, and confidence to export and grow the economy. That is why I added confidence to stability and security as a third byword for this year's budget tagline when taking up my new role a few weeks ago. To encourage that confidence, the Chief Minister and I signalled a substantial rise in the personal allowance, alongside slowing down the rise in the minimum wage and cancelling the package of previously proposed minimum wage adaptation measures in January. The proposed rise will increase most taxpayers' take-home pay, lifting about 3,600 people out of the tax net, and is aimed at boosting disposable income in the local economy. It will make many taxpayers nearly £500 better off each year. Mr. President, honourable members, today I am pleased to announce an increase in the personal tax allowance from April of £2,250, so that the individuals will start paying on annual earnings over £17,000 and jointly assessed couples from £34,000. This is triple the £750 proposed until the budget revisions took place a few weeks ago, and that proposed £750 rise was already triple the only other rises since 2021. This change is expected to reduce income tax receipts by up to £24 million. But £15 million of that relates to measures introduced since I became Treasury Minister, partly offset by stronger income tax forecasts, resulting in a net additional reduction of income tax of £10 million. This change to the personal tax allowance means that the higher rate of income tax, frozen at 21%, now becomes payable at an income of £23,500. This means someone working up to 35 hours a week on the new hourly minimum wage rate would not pay tax at the higher rate.
Chris Thomas, our Treasury Minister, and we'll have more reflection on the budget as the week goes on, and Chris Thomas will be on the breakfast show later on this week and on Mannin Line next Monday. So if you've got any thoughts on this, you can get in touch and speak to the Minister. But in the meantime, any first thoughts on this? Stability, security and confidence, he says. So the tax threshold goes up. Individuals start paying tax on annual earnings over £17,000 and jointly assessed couples at £34,000, now largest uplift in recent years, and the higher tax rate will become payable on income above £23,500. So thoughts on this? I got a message in from Pat who said pensioners will fall behind in living standards. Pensions will rise by a maximum of £10 per week. From Tesco, the price of a basket of 30 essential items has risen by 24.6% in the last 12 months. Add that to the rise in electricity, heat, rates and other things, and pensioners' futures looks bleak. The rise in tax thresholds won't help. Most state pensioners on the Isle of Man don't receive enough to pay tax. We'll see more of the elderly dying this year. Well, thank you, Pat. That's an opinion. Any thoughts on that? Just a quick word about the Meet the Matrons roadshow, which is on this coming Thursday. It's on Thursday the 19th at the Costa Coffee in Crosby from midday till 2. Manx Care is preparing to launch its experience and involvement strategy. You can meet the matrons from Nobles to Crosby, the Costa Coffee Crosby, this coming Thursday 19th from midday through till 2. Messages. It's puzzled me, says Gary, that the government wants to bring thousands of new workers here to support the economy, but has done nothing to reduce the size of the public sector or spending on the welfare state. From my perspective, says Gary, political ideology within Treasury over recent years has not delivered good outcomes. Looking at the UK, higher taxes there, no cuts to welfare, and a minimum wage increase impacting on businesses. On the Isle of Man, we had a 2% health tax charge, and now the number of job vacancies has fallen significantly, perhaps due to concerns about hiring new staff at a time when minimum wage costs were expected to rise by about 9%. I hope the next election, voters don't elect MHKs based on populist throwaway statements and instead ask clearly how candidates intend to deliver on their promises. Well, you'll have plenty of opportunity later on this year when they come knocking on the door and ringing the bell. An anonymous texter says adults with undiagnosed and unmediated ADHD are much more likely to develop addictions, particularly to cocaine. They're more likely to engage in impulsive and antisocial behaviour. Research suggests that diagnosing and treating ADHD in prison populations and drug rehabilitation settings significantly reduces reoffending and drug relapse. And the Isle of Man hasn't had adequate provision for this diagnosis and treatment of ADHD for many years. Personally, I think this is linked to the systemic issues with offending and with drugs on the Isle of Man. Well, that's something you might like to reflect on. Of course, the Chief Constable is going to be on later on this month, and it was his stated aim to, do you remember what he said? Put his foot on the snake of drug supply on the Isle of Man. Well, talking of increased confidence on the Isle of Man and private investment, I don't know whether you've spotted that the Island Infrastructure Scheme will see 2 long-stalled development sites in Douglas completed. The initiative, which sees up to 25% of eligible development costs provided to brownfield redevelopment projects. Well, actually, I think it's paid in arrears. Once the development's finished, then the government coughs that up to the developers. The latest projects to be offered financial support are the redevelopment of the former Newsons building on North Quay and the former KFC, the Griddles site in Duke Street, which has been there for ages. That iron skeleton has been there. Those 2 sites join others at Villiers Square and Lake Road in Douglas, and the Ocean Castle in Port Erin to receive funding through this Island Infrastructure Scheme. Any thoughts on this, particularly when we're talking about developing brownfield sites on the Isle of Man? This is something that, and as I say, I'm convinced that the money it's retrospective. They don't get money up front for it. You've got to finish the actual development, and particularly that development in Duke Street, which has taken ages, and of course is now hemmed in by the Villiers Square development at the back of it. So heaven knows how they're going to get building wagons around the back, because they're building there till I think it's March 2027. That hotel is due to finish. It'll be for TT 2027. Now, Manx Care is often a vexed question on the Isle of Man. Healthcare funding has increased in this budget, but the Chief Minister says Manx Care's ability to deliver its services on budget remains a serious concern. DHSC, Department of Health and Social Care, received an extra £45 million for the year ahead, taking the funds available for health services to £412 million. 412. And of course, we often get the message from Manx Care that they don't have enough money. Can't deliver all the services, or can't deliver the services they want to because there's not enough money. So for the year ahead, £412 million. Well, in Tynwald today, Alfred Cannon MHK, the Chief Minister, said there may be need to take a serious look at future funding options for health. Future funding options.
No one, Mr. President, can criticise this administration for not supporting health. Their budget has increased by £200 million, effectively an increase of 100% since 2021. This year, a further £40 million is allocated, a sum that takes Manx Care above the funding formula recommended by Sir Jonathan Michael. I know the Health Minister is well aware of the financial challenges faced by her department, and more importantly, how much healthcare spending has ballooned. I congratulate her for the work she is doing to get a grip on costs and to understand future funding requirements. But the continued growth of healthcare spending at its current annual rate of 12%, a figure, Mr. President, far outstripping the balance needed between forecasted income and expenditure, remains a real concern. A concern that will not just rest on my shoulders. I know that the great majority of members in this honourable place absolutely recognise that healthcare spending, if it cannot be brought under control, will present a serious and significant threat to the proportionality of the Manx budget, a threat to proportionality that will undoubtedly mean fundamental changes to either taxation, the funding of healthcare itself, or a fundamental change to other services delivered to the public by the Isle of Man government. I take heart from the assurances in this budget that healthcare spending will be £475 million in 2030-2031 if Manx Care can adhere to its spending forecasts. I take fright at the projected increase to £650 million if Manx Care cannot control its budget. That in itself would raise spending from the current 35%, healthcare spending from the current 35% of total available income to 48%. That is serious and significant. And so, whilst I welcome the Health Minister's assurances regarding ongoing work to specify demand-related costs, I still cannot help but feel that sooner rather than later, a serious look at future funding options will have to be taken.
Do you get the message between the lines? The crunch is coming. The crunch is coming with funding options for health and social care on the Isle of Man. If costs keep going up, well, something has to happen. Does the government realise? This is Francis. Hello, Francis. If we get an extra 30,000 people on the Isle of Man, we need to build lots more hospitals and schools. Do you think the government's given that any thought? Well, it's not 30,000, is it? If there are 85,000 here at the moment and they're aiming for 100,000, it's 15,000. But point taken, thanks for that. So we can earn 17,500 before we pay tax, but it goes up to 20% payable at 23,500. So we're still taking only from the poor working class. Only those earning above 35,000 should have to pay 20%. Those who need money to cover the cost of living increases are the ones being punished as usual. That's an anonymous contribution from 345. And it is and again, this is always a point of view. This is a comparative. It's wealth is in the eye of the beholder. How much would you think is well off? How much do you have to earn to be wealthy? I'm not talking about assets. I'm talking about how much you would have to earn. And that, of course, is dependent on dependents, whether you have a spouse to take care of, if the spouse doesn't work, whether you have children, whether you have elderly relatives that maybe have to be looked after. What's wealthy these days? What is a wealthy? What's a whacking salary these days? Have you got an opinion on the matter? Richard's with us now. Hi, Richard.
Yeah, hi Andy. Just a quick question on the brownfield site funding.
Yeah.
Is it a handout or is it a grant that has to be repaid?
No, from my understanding, it's at the end of it, when the development is finished, a percentage of the development cost is given back to the developer. So they have to do all the upfront work and everything, and when it's done, an amount is given back to them.
Given, scot-free, no repayment.
No.
So,
It's an incentive. I think it's an incentive for somebody to do big developments. So, and of course, by the time they've done it and put money into the economy and employed people, that's it. Yeah, I'm trying to think who's had that first. That has been around for quite a while. This island incentive scheme.
So, hypothetically, if the developer built the building, let's say, whether it's an office or a hotel or whatever, got his funding, and then sold it within a period of time and made a profit, does that come back into the Isle government, or has he just made a profit and that's it?
No.
We've literally bankrolled him a percentage of that development.
The Department of Enterprise brought this island infrastructure scheme in a while ago. It's kind of it's designed to help redevelop already used land. This is not kind of greenfield or anything like that. It's old factories, derelict sites that cost more to fix because of demolition and what have you. So that the developer applies for support up to 25%, not just 25%. It's up to 25% of eligible build costs, but not the land. The money's paid if strict conditions are met, planning approved and the project's completed properly. The aim's to make the difficult sites financially viable. It's not there to give away cash. They basically just want to regenerate stuff. And it's an incentive for private developers to do it, to unlock stalled land, as it were, these brownfield sites, bring in private investment and deliver housing or regeneration, but not build on greenfield sites.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice business to be in.
It's an incentive. Well, that exactly. If you've got that amount of money and you can afford to do it, it's an incentive. But I mean, it basically gets these difficult sites built on because they're an eyesore. I mean, that skeleton in Duke Street has been. How long has that been there? 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not in the business, Richard, are you?
I am not in the business,
right.
But if somebody was going to pay me 25% of my build costs, I might be,
Well, there we are. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks very much.
Good to hear from you. Separately, the government-owned brownfield sites are handled by the Manx Development Corporation, which we've talked about in the past. And we can't get much information about the Manx Development Corporation, but this island infrastructure scheme is for private investors and private developers to unlock brownfield sites, and obviously they have to decontaminate sites and upgrade infrastructure and what have you. It's more difficult than building on a greenfield site. So the Manx Development Corporation works commercially and is expected to generate returns while regenerating key areas. And of course, the big one they've done is the nurses' home on Westmoreland Road. It's targeted regeneration funding with conditions designed to share risk and kickstart development. It's an incentive. It's not free money, obviously, because you've got to spend an awful lot of money to get everything done in the first place. But that's the Island Infrastructure Scheme. When is the government going to make a statement about Balladool amenity site? The current workers there have been given their redundancy notices for March. Is that true? Have the government granted the running of the site to a new company to run the amenity site, or is the site going to close until they get it sorted? It will be nice if a Ramsey MHK, Dr. Ellison perhaps, came on and dropped a text to let us know in the north what is happening with Balladool. If, and that's unconfirmed at the moment, 696, if the workers at Balladool have been given redundancy notices. If we already had, I think we already have 15,000 people on the Isle of Man, and where they didn't do the new residents go for dental treatments. My family's been on the priority waiting list for a dentist, and we've been on the priority list for a dentist for 7 months, says 235. Again, it's a good point. if you're waiting and have to wait for a GP appointment, if you have to wait for an NHS dentist, or if you just give up waiting and you have to fund it yourself. No joke at all. Regarding Manx Care, says June, and the overspend, compare how many managers' posts and nursing posts on the front line have been created. This really needs to be looked at. There are just too many pen pushers, says June. The government should investigate this. The more you earn, the more you spend. So how much is enough when you have everything and you don't spend any more, says Des. Make some sense of that for me, Des. I was asking you for an amount of money. How much would you say? 35,000? 50,000? 60,000? And if it's a household income, and if you have children and dependents you need to look after, how much? I mean, how much is enough? How much is wealthy? Private health is happening now, says John. Dental, podiatry and hearing, many people are voting with their checkbooks and wallets and going private. Well, the budget analysis will go on. If you've got any thought, you go to our website, by the way. We've got a special budget website which will tell you everything you need to know about this. Talking about brownfield sites, what's happening about the waterfall at Glen May? It's an eyesore now, completely letting the village down after all the years they went in for planning to pull it down and got the go-ahead to do so, and nothing in the past 2 years has been happening, Barry said. It's depressing looking at the waterfall at Glen May. And by the way, Barry also said, the poppy at Douglas Head is fantastic. Leave it alone. Thank you for that. Thank you also to... Claire Christian, that was it. We were talking about the Chief Minister was alluding to a new funding mechanism for Manx Care. Well, more than £400 million has been allocated to the Isle of Man's Health Service as part of this year's budget. DHSC has had the funding increased by £45 million compared to last year. We've heard what the Chief Minister had to say about all that. Here's the DHSC Minister, Claire Christian, MHK.
This is about delivering care better, earlier and in the right place, that patients value, so we reduce avoidable costs and improve outcomes at the same time. Mr President and honourable members, I will provide a progress report at the Tynwald members briefing in July 26 to give a clear picture of what has been achieved in the FRP and the actions being taken to realise the ambition of becoming the best small island and social care system. The people of our island expect to access care and support when they need it, to be seen by the right professionals and to receive safe, high-quality services. This budget supports the Department set a mandate that recognises health and social care is not delivered in one place, but across many, from our carers who are supporting people at home to services available in our local communities and nearer to home, to timely access to GPs and expanded support in pharmacies, to care settings and, when required, in hospital. This budget responds to that reality with a mandate balances ambition and discipline. It ensures that funding is spent wisely and ensures that public money is directed to delivering effective, safe and reliable care for the people of our island. Mr President, this budget is more than just about the year ahead. It is about putting the health and care system on a firmer financial footing, ensuring it is clinically robust, financially sustainable and able to meet the needs of our community over the long term. That is the responsibility we carry, and that is what this budget seeks to deliver.
Claire Christian, MHK, the DHSC Minister, and it takes up a lot of money, takes a lot of resources, 35%. The Chief Minister was saying 35% of our resources goes on health and social care. The population is getting older. Drugs and treatment are going up in price. Everybody wants paying. It seems like it's every other month that somebody somewhere is threatening industrial action in the health and social care system. So the cost of labour is going up all the time. we have to make a decision, don't we? It's going to go up in price. What do we do? Thank you to the urgent waiting list note. This is Ian in Jerby, who said the urgent waiting list for oral surgery is 1.5 years. I rang the other day to be told that. Oral surgery, 1.5 years. Any further funding, Andrea said, any further funding given to the DHSC or Manx Care should be on the proviso that the Auditor General does a full audit on both areas within the next 6 months. Wealthy is when you don't have to worry about how much you spend. That changes depending on the individual. Some people settle for less. Thank you, Desmond. I was looking for a figure, Des. Is it 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000? I know people's circumstances vary, but tax rates are kind of immovable. You know, tax bands are immovable. So at what point do you think higher tax should be paid? Just a thought. If we can cut through that will be fantastic. Another Ian said to, with all this happening, have we had an update on the ferry tax that was going to be levied by the UK? There are plans in the UK to introduce this new net zero tax on domestic ferry trips. Well, apparently it's not going to affect the ferries to and from the Isle of Man. But separate proposals relating to international journeys, which are due to come into force in 2028, could affect us. This is, what's his name, Ed Miliband in the UK, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, planning domestic levy taking effect in the UK from July, pushing, amongst other things, the cost of a summer car crossing to the Isle of Man going up by £28. Imagine if we had to pay that. £28. But for the moment, Ian, we're safe and sound.
You've been talking for weeks. They're funny and they're thoughtful and they say all the right things and...
Babe, I'm stuck abroad. I just need a little money to get home.
And that's the moment. The moment a romance turns into a crime. Scammers build trust, then strike, leaving victims heartbroken and out of pocket. If someone you've never met wants money, think. Protect yourself. Stop communicating with them immediately and report the incident. A message brought to you by Isle of Man Bankers Association, Financial Crime Partnership, the Isle of Man Constabulary and the Cyber Security Centre for the Isle of Man. Visit csc.gov.im.
My friend waited ages to get his car back from the garage. He only went in for a service, but they really messed him around. Told him it needed a part and he's no idea what it's going to cost. I said next time try Athol Garage. They offer fixed price menu servicing on all makes and models, so you know exactly what's being done and the full costs in advance. And you get a loan vehicle. As a franchise dealer, they may charge slightly more per hour, but will most likely take less time. Choose a reliable garage. Athol Garage Ballasalla, not just Nissan.
Join us at the Mannin Hotel for Around the World Afternoon Tea, French edition, on Sunday the 22nd of February between 1 and 3, when you'll enjoy a delicious Parisian-themed afternoon tea, including filled croissants, mini French onion soup, profiteroles, macaroons, strawberry tarts and more, paired with a sparkling white wine, all at just £27.50 per person. You need to pre-book, so call 602 555 or email restaurant@manninhotel.im.
Manx Mobility in Onken have it all. Daily living aids, wide-fitting shoes, rise recliners, beds and scooters, including lightweight and airline-approved models. Call in and see how our expert team can make your life easier. Manx Mobility at the top of Summer Hill.
Are you a small charity here on the Isle of Man? Are you looking for volunteers, hoping to raise awareness and chasing those crucial pounds and pennies to support your work? Well, Manx Radio can help. You could be our next 1 to 3 Charity of the Week with daily on-air coverage, podcast and social media promotion. We can help support you and those you help. Just email the numbers 123@manxradio.com and listen out for the feature each weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
26 minutes before 1. Pancake Day and Budget Day today it is. And if you want to work out how much you are better or worse off, all you need to do is go to manxradio.com, click on the thing that says Budget site. We've got a budget mini site, and it tells you everything you need to know. There's a blog there, tells you about the taxes, healthcare, pensions, benefits and allowances. the education, capital projects are going to be happening. And there's also a tax calculator for 26-27. All you need to do is put all your stuff in: annual salary, benefits in kind, monthly pension, etc., etc., etc. Hit the button and it'll tell you, under the current system and under the new system, how much better you are off. They should scrap the NHS, says Mark, and Manx Care in the current form. Everybody should have private health insurance. Presumably that means you wouldn't be paying tax then. The tax burden will be lifted, the amount of money that goes. And that, of course, that happens in many other countries. Germany, particularly in France. In Germany, I think there's a state levy, and everybody has to take private insurance out. And it seems to work very well in Germany. I think it's called the Bismarck plan that they have in Germany. And just like, to correct you, by the way, the Isle of Man needs an extra 15,000 workers in increase of the population to break even. What about the cost to cover dependents? That's a WhatsApper on 223. Is it a whopping income is what the level of directors of Manx Care are earning, and a lot of them don't live over here? Well, actually, the income... as Mary dropped that note in, the figures released in Tynwald and reported locally show that the top 20 earners at Manx Care earned £7.1 million combined in 2024-25. The highest salary, the single highest salary, is £450,000. Now, whether that's a clinician or a specialist or a bureaucrat, we don't know. Most of the highest paid roles are senior doctors and consultants, not corporate directors. So that 450,000 will probably be a senior doctor or consultant. That pay reflects that is a good wage, by the way, I think. That pay reflects specialist clinical work, extra hours, hard to fill medical posts, not executive bonuses. Board level directors are paid much less by comparison. On the claim that lots of them don't live here, there's no published FOI or official data confirming that Manx Care's executives, some don't live here. Residential details aren't publicly released for privacy reasons, so that part of the claim can't currently be backed up with evidence. So the facts are, yes, some salaries are very high for Manx Care. They're mainly medical specialists, not admin execs, and there's no proof on record that large numbers of top earners live off the Isle of Man. Now, this comes from official disclosures via the Isle of Man government and Manx Care reporting. So, Mary, I hope that answers your question. Thank you, Alf. For the rise in personal tax, bearing in mind it's been frozen for most of the term, though, his term, it equates to hardly 1% for every year, which, funnily enough, is the same as the extra health tax put on the basic tax years ago. So we're no better off, we're just worse off, says Rich. Thank you, Rich. Brownfield Development Grant is 25% of build costs. It's a gift with no long-term return. Says 648. My opinion is that the government should take control of the ownership of the land and the development is built on, so that the government own and control the ground rent, where they continue to receive the return on investment for years to come. Well, that's what the Manx Development Corporation is doing, but it's doing it with the government land. So are you suggesting, this is anonymous, by the way, 648 hasn't signed it, are you saying then that the government should compulsorily purchase land like that iron skeleton in Duke Street, because the developers have been sitting on their hands for years and years, and it's a blight on Duke Street, that the government, are you suggesting that the government should compulsorily purchase that land and then take over, and then the government should run it as well? Bearing in mind that private developers are not more nimble on their feet than government. But point taken, when you say it's a gift with no long-term return, the private developer has to put the money in first. They don't get the money at the start. The private developer has to develop a difficult site, could be contaminated, could be stuff that has to be taken out. The site has to be stabilised, levelled, and then it has to be built on. While they're doing that, they employ people. Consequently, there'll be ITIP contributions into the economy. And the government, I think, takes the view that it's better to get all this moving and get the economy moving. And if there is going to be, if you like, a bonus at the end of it, a payback for the private developers, I think the government takes the view that that's worth it. This anonymous contributor calls it a gift. OK. I found Michelle Haywood's opening comments today somewhat amusing. No sour grapes there. If you've been listening to Tynwald, by the way, which is on our AM 1368 frequency, then Michelle Haywood was not holding back. That's all I'll say. We'll have more reports of that as the day goes on. We'll be looking at this. I mentioned that we've got the Treasury Minister is going to be on the breakfast show later on this week. I also just want to tell you, when I can find it, we've got a special show coming up later on tonight. The IM1 people, the satirical people, they've been taking a look at the budget, and it's funny.
Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
Manx Wild Bird Aid rehabilitates sick, injured and orphaned wild birds right here on the Isle of Man, relying entirely on volunteers and donations. If you find a bird in trouble, contact us on Facebook for advice or to arrange rescue. You can help by volunteering, donating funds or goods, or supporting our fundraising efforts. Visit wildbirdaid.com.
This advert is brought to you by Kell Properties.
Crow Isle of Man Chartered Accountants.
Remember when you used to get business advice from your bank manager? Stiff upper-lipped pillars of the community whom you called Sir? Nowadays, you can get all the advice on every business issue from the friendly, down-to-earth chaps at Crow Isle of Man. And some of the chaps are even women. Imagine! Crow Isle of Man. Global presence, local knowledge.
Crow Isle of Man. Crow.im.
Getting to your ideal weight can be a journey full of ups and downs, dead ends and diversions. But at Kingsley Mooti, we can keep your weight loss journey moving in the right direction with dedicated support throughout from our in-house clinical team and treatments tailored to your specific needs. Start your online consultation today at kingsleymooti.com or call 625040 to book an appointment with our trusted team. Rated 5 stars by over 100 patients. Kingsley Mooti. Your health, our commitment.
Bembridge Academy does things a little differently. A fully online independent school that allows you to take control of your child's education.
We want happy students that feel safe, that feel comfortable, that are engaging with their learning, and their mental health and well-being is absolutely at the forefront of everything we do.
To listen to the full podcast recorded with the Manx Radio team and find out everything you need to know about Bembridge Academy, just go to the podcast page on manxradio.com. Bembridge Academy, an alternative choice for education.
The Treasury Minister has unveiled the Manx budget for 2026. But what does this year's budget mean for you? There's full analysis and reaction now at manxradio.com. On Thursday morning at 8:10, Chris Thomas will join us on Manx Radio Breakfast for an extended interview. And on Friday evening at 5, join us for our special budget programme when our studio audience will put their questions direct to the Treasury Minister.
Manx Radio's budget coverage, brought to you by Crow Isle of Man. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
That's my good afternoon, 17 minutes before 1. Lots of messages to get through and some questions to attend to. Daphne in Mackald. If Ramsey loses 52 parking spots, Ramsey will lose many shoppers. This is the proposal by the DOI to put this 4-foot wall from Bowring Road through to Mezeran and take 52 parking spots away. If I can't park in Ramsey, I'll do my shopping online. That'll be a tragedy, and I think many shops will close in Ramsey. I love Ramsey. Leave our town alone. Fix the roads with the money if you're going to spend it. However, Daphne, what do we do if Ramsey floods? What do we do about this? Thank you also to Dan, who said, "You made me spit my sandwich out the other day. Great men are well remembered, but few are so renowned as Ori or Gorry the Dane. Anybody who went to Ballacomune remembers getting a King Ori, i.e. it wasn't lines, you had to write out King Ori," said Ian. Anyway, I remember that. How much does the Isle of Man spend on international aid? This is a message in from 039. How much did we spend on international? It's John. Well, the Isle of Man, I was just checking, the Isle of Man puts aside £2.5 million a year for international development through the Cabinet Office under the Isle of Man government. That money, £2.5 million, split across three main areas: emergency disaster relief, longer-term development projects, often health, education or clean water schemes, and support for partner charities working overseas. In the most recently reported years, £750,000 was direct overseas aid, with the rest funding structured programmes rather than one-off donations. For scale, spread across the Isle of Man's population, it works out roughly between £25 and £30 per person per year going for overseas aid. So it's not huge sums in government terms. It's a small fixed budget aimed at humanitarian support and development. It's not open-ended spending. It's basically keeping up with everybody else. Everybody else funds international aid, and obviously we're an international island. We have international finance based here, so that's it. I just wonder. Having said that, though, $2.5 million will probably put the horse trams back, wouldn't it? To celebrate and Budget Day, the IM1 series has got it's on tonight, Tuesday evening, but will also be repeated Friday evening. So listen out tonight. The IM1 team will be taking the. Anyway, they'll be looking at the budget. Is there any news about the bus strike starting on Saturday for 10 days, says Joe. I absolutely agree 100% with the strike and the reasons why it needs to go ahead. Tidwell should pull its finger out and at least let the public know what the state of play is going to be for everyone who uses the buses to get to and from work. This is starting on Saturday. For all the people who 100% rely on buses to get food, medicines, have they sorted it out with the pharmacists, how to make sure people aren't left without medication, especially the elderly, and how to get to and from the hospital? What have we heard? Absolutely zero, says Joe. Many are going to be forced to use holiday leave as they won't be able to get to work. This is what happens when they take advantage of workers, i.e. the bus drivers, says Joe. If they worked in government-run office jobs, they wouldn't get away with it. They'd be up in arms permanently on strike, says Joe. Well, we don't know. It's due to start on Saturday, so we'll find out exactly as we get closer to that what's going to happen. The 25%, says Francis, is a gift. Follow the money trail. I have to tell you, Francesca, this is nothing new. I mean, keep up. This has been going on for years and years and years. This island infrastructure scheme has been going on to regenerate brownfield sites. Everybody rabbits on about brownfield sites and how they're an eyesore, but they cost money. It's much cheaper to build on a greenfield site than it is a brownfield site. So again, what do you suggest? If you're suggesting, and this is, you can call it an incentive, you can call it whatever you want. It's a government incentive for private developers to develop a brownfield site, and then at the end of it, and only at the end of it, when it's been completely done and everything's been checked, every jot and tittle has been analysed, then up to 25% is passed back to the developer. Been going for years. Instead of a 4-foot wall, why don't we take 2 feet out of the harbour, says 999. Good idea. I should sell you some land west of Derby, shouldn't I? How much have cigarettes gone up in the budget? I'll check for you. Thank you for that. Appearing in my online newsfeed was an article saying that a UK county is suing private dentistry practices for not meeting allocated NHS dental appointment agreed with the NHS in legal contracts. I think it was in the Guardian, says Sammy. Well, obviously that doesn't apply here, Sammy, because we're not in the UK. But when a dentist signs a contract with Manx Care, they have to do UDAs, units of dental activity, and that's where they get their money from. It's like piecework. For every unit of dental activity they do, they get paid for it. Some dentists obviously have completely opted out and are completely private, but that's the situation we find it in. Regarding international aid, we have a food bank and a housing crisis. Charity begins at home, says Neil in Douglas. What are you saying, Neil, that we shouldn't give that money, £2.5 million? I mean, I don't know whether it's all in cash, because certainly whenever they renew a lot of technology and a lot of infrastructure at the hospital. I think the hospital beds used to get sent to Africa at one time. I don't know whether that was in it. In 1884, the breakwater was destroyed by a storm, so nothing new in flooding in Ramsey and other sites, says John. The developer on the Villiers site is getting 50% in grants, says 223. Have you got any proof of that, by the way, 223? A couple earning £50,000 each, £100,000, is not wealthy, says Sue. 100,000 between two isn't wealthy, and yet they lose child benefit and other perks such as free school music lessons. Their average earners, as inflation means that £50,000 isn't a big wage. A skilled tradesperson doing a 40-hour week on £20 per hour earns a gross wage of £41,600 per annum. So 40 hours, £20 an hour, $41,600. So a couple would gross $83,200. They don't take that home after tax. Inflation means that what used to be seen as high wages is now average. Well, that's a good point. So what is a high wage? And obviously this will all affect where the tax bands are. Who pays what?
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
In his statement today, says Rich, Mr Cannon confirmed that health spending with the extra $10 million is now double the £228 million that the old DHSC managers spent 4 years ago before Manxcare arrived. But inflation, including pay rises on the 228 then, is now £50 million more. At the very most, it should be 280 now for health each year. So where's the extra £150 million been spent? Remember, we never had any directors, nurses or non-execs living across in the old DHSC. Now, for some reason, we have to pay hundreds of thousands to each of them in salaries plus flights and accommodation to be here. For what? Rich says we should get rid of anybody who doesn't live on the Isle of Man who all pay tax here from Manxcare, and you'll save millions. Well, Rich, I mean, I accept your opinion, Rich, but what would happen if Manxcare imploded? If suddenly dozens of people left, waved ta-ta, and went somewhere else, what would we do then? But I agree, it would be nice to know, wouldn't it? Maybe the budget should have paid money to people whose flight was cancelled on Saturday morning because the air traffic controller was late for work. We lost £600 on football tickets and hotels, etc. I got to the airport at 6 a.m. Why weren't they able to get there? Thank you for that point. Thanks also to 632, who just said, was there any mention of the horse tram in the budget? Says Lynn. I don't know. All the bets were that they were going to bring the horse tram out at the end and just say something. Thanks also to Mickey, who said, I've got a way to solve the horse tram thing. They should make at least one of the horse trams Viking themed. Obviously, we've got a link with Norway. And then it would not only be the horse tram, it would be the Norse tram. Dr. Hayward used references to circus acts in her contribution to the budget. She never mentioned another circus act, which was a human fired from a cannon. Do you get that? Thank you, 648. Very nice. Yes, Michelle Hayward went on for about 10 minutes about the government being a large circus with tent poles and this, that and the other. People complain about flooding or derelict building sites. The government takes proactive steps to address the issues, and people moan about that too. Perfectly encapsulates the Isle of Man, says Steve. This is the Island Development Scheme. Thank you for that. I think it's great news, says Graham, that the personal tax allowance is going up. But the biggest problem here with regards to the government ever breaking even is the fact that they're paying themselves too much in wages generated from my money. It's ridiculous that 20% of the island's workforce is being paid by the other 80%. Public sector should have a 10-year recruitment freeze at least to reduce the size to a sustainable level. In my opinion, there are too many people living off the backs of the rest of us. Thank you, says Graham. Well, How many times have we heard reducing the size of government? It should be on the back of a beer mat, shouldn't it? Reducing the size of the government. It's political bingo speak. So who's going to do it? Certainly Alan Bell reduced the size of government. By the time the Bell administration finished, the size of government was lower. Andy says, 3 for 1, it's not easy to calculate a good wage in the UK because of regional variations, e.g. a city or many deprived places where no industry is anymore, many on quite low disposable incomes. However, £50,000 per year, that is. Any budget announcement quotes figures that are meaningless to most people, in my opinion. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, somebody called in and said that I've heard that Living Hope Church are going to be fielding candidates almost as a party in the next election. So we contacted Living Hope and they said, thank you for your inquiry. We're a Manx church and an Isle of Man charity whose purpose clearly is to share the good news about Jesus and function as a church. There is no plan and never will be for a political party or fielding candidates from Living Hope Church in any election. Anybody who's told you this information is clearly misled. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it. Go to the manxradio.com website for more on the budget. Listen to that programme tonight. Thanks to Chris on the phones. Back tomorrow. Open line. Enjoy your Tuesday.
WINT.